This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I'd like to welcome to the show today Nolan Del Campo.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And Harriet Suchet.
Yep, good morning.
Good morning. I'm actually going to start with you today. We talked about a week and a half ago about Joan Webster, who was murdered in Boston, Massachusetts on November 28th of 1981. And I had put in here that I wanted to research this slide in regards to the 50 megahertz screech, which I now don't even know what my notes were about. I do show that there were some letters that were mailed to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I think that I found those in the FOIA file. And of course, they indicated that there was a cipher in those particular communications. And you know which ones I'm talking about, right, Harriet?
Yeah, and I have to locate that cipher. I worked on that one a while ago.
Oh, okay. So this is
so
we're going to talk about a different cipher today, then, right? In regards to Joan Webster.
It's, if I remember correctly, you were asking me to do something or see if I can finish solving something, and I kept on finding the Santa Claus card. So,
Okay.
and then that everybody and their grandmother says it has something to do with Joan Webster. So yeah, I guess we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Well,
I didn't actively pull up a copy of that particular postcard, but we know that postcards are definitely within the Zodiac's realm. He was phenomenal infamous, I guess, if you will, for sending out postcards like the Lancaster and Palmdale postcard in regards to JFK and the 13th victim postcard. We saw postcards back in the Black Dahlia. It seemed to be a running theme in the communication. So I would not discount that. And it would be interesting to see that particular communication. Do you know whether it was handwritten or if it was typed? How was that one posed? Do you know?
It was handwritten, and the card itself, the Santa Claus postcard, was in a window envelope stationery thing, and then it had 4 stamps on it. Once I saw that, because when I saw it initially, I said, I'm not going to get anything out of this. Who keeps on thinking that this is from the Zodiac and they must have killed Joan? So anyways, then I saw the 4 stamps. 3 of them had the killer, which is a line only instead of a postmark. Then I took it from there. Yes, I did get a lot. I get a lot. Oh, just
out of those stamps?
Everything about the stamps. Yeah,
okay.
I'd identify everything about the 4 stamps, and then there was a couple of these mysterious versions of Joan Webster, because they were saying it had something to do with Joan Webster because of a name or a couple of names on the envelope. And once I
were those redacted?
Yeah, there was a couple of partial redactions, if I remember right, and then it just flowed from there. And it looks like Jack was trying to bypass Reagan again. He doesn't like Reagan, and he's asking Jimmy Carter for some help in regards of what. Basically, they have some information as to what happened to Joan Webster, and that he was fearing at the end of the solve is saying, I'm fearing that she lost her life off the creek, the Chewbacca Creek. I'm trying to remember the name of the creek. And then there's a U shape. It's a sideways U-shaped C for the Santa Claus with a dot in it. If you turn it a little bit, it fits the exact location in off of the creek where they found her remains in the 90s.
Oh, really?
So information.
Go ahead, Nolan.
Yeah, do we have a little more background on Joan Webster? What her job was, and any history?
Wealthy family.
What's that? Wealthy family. Okay.
Yeah, wealthy family. Father worked for International Telephone and Telegraph, and when you look into that, we'd be here for about a week trying to describe all of what they were involved with. Aerospace. They could even do phone numbers for the White House. So some of this solve came out with protected phone numbers, the prefixes for the White House. So
and they cooperated with the FBI and phone taps.
Yeah. So it was an interesting solve, and it looks like they had information, and they're saying that it was Robert Abel, and Jack is trying to relay this information through Carter, through a series of people. I fear that she's lost her life. But when I saw the Robert Abel-esque of it all, of how they found her remains, and that she was bludgeoned and that she was off to the side of the creek, it's very gross. I looked for the picture of the suspect, and there is a picture, and it looks like Robert Abel.
Really?
The composite. Yeah, because he looks like the composite in circa 1980 with a beard and black hair, etc. Height, everything.
Wow. Do you have this to read?
Yeah.
Would you like me to read it, and you can tell us what it means?
Oh, go for it.
All right. So it says, Mr. Carter, 6:30 facsimile. So you're saying that 6:30 and 30 seconds p.m. facsimile? Is that what that's saying? Woodland Drive.
And in the morning.
Yeah, in the AM. So facsimile, Woodland Drive, Plains, Georgia, 31780. So that's where the facsimile was sent to?
Yeah. He's trying to get information out about who killed her.
And it says 456 Press, Mitchell photograph, Harold Geenan, ITT Webster father. So Harold Geenan is the father. Well, so what's the Press Mitchell photograph?
Oh, Ben Mitchell was a press photographer. He did apparently for a Santa Claus, but it looks like he might have taken a few pictures that had to do with the Republican Party in the New York area, I think.
Okay,
so he was
now
a photographer. He was a famous.
Gotcha. And it says Harold Geenan, ITT, Webster father George, RNC, 1972, United States, prominent Americans. What does that mean? So George is her father, not Harold Geenan, right?
Yeah, Harold Geenan is the top guy in International Telephone and Telegraph.
Oh, that's where you got that.
Republican National Committee.
Yep.
Okay. So, all right. So Harold Geenan is obviously, you're saying he's the head of ITT, and Webster's father, George, Republican National Committee, 1972, United States, prominent Americans, RE456. What is that?
That's re-elect, and then the prefix of 456 is for the White House, and it's the redacted phone number. So it's re-elect Nixon committee. Creep.
So Nixon.
So
creep.
yeah. The committee to re-elect President Nixon.
Re-elect President Nixon. Creep. All right, guys. So it says Nixon won 1168, and it goes back to give that redacted phone number again with the prefix of 456, which you said was a White House prefix.
Yeah. So he's trying to not give out the White House number in this code.
Gotcha.
But Jimmy Carter would know it. Anyway.
Right? Vice President AG knew 400 grand. What does that mean?
That's John Mitchell.
No, Vice President Agnew. And then they did something with 400 grand that was apparently suspected to be a no-no. So they had to take that back. But this is all involving the International Telephone and Telegraph people. They tried to do a big donation, but they had to work it out, retract it. And so he's recapping about those events that leads up to knowing something about Joan Webster. What happened to her.
Right. So it goes on to say, you remember 11/20/78, still alive, Pope John Paul II, AB New York City, New York, C. Washington stamps printed by Bureau of Printing, engraving, perforation, 11 millimeter use, business rep envelope.
Yeah,
Catch
the
us up to
business
there.
reply envelope. Yeah, where his mother is being used as the post office in Texas. So he's trying to recap and remind Carter what had happened recently. So he's just doing a good job about recapping in code.
Gotcha. And then it goes on to say, save me to tell the truth, New Jersey, 11/385, Joan met. So you're saying that Joan Webster is originally from New Jersey?
Yeah, yep, that's her zip code. Yeah, her
11/385. Because this was showing that it was Boston, Massachusetts. How's that play in?
Oh, she apparently had visited for the holidays, like around Thanksgiving, and then was going back to her college or her university in Massachusetts.
Gotcha.
And it's saying that she met up and had a connection to Robert Abel, a bad connection.
So yeah, Joan met shitty MoonQuest Texas killer fucker Abel, 10/47/37. What does that mean?
That was all the numbers I had left after I was finishing with the words, and many people said that they saw her after 10 p.m., even after 10:30 p.m. So I said, well,
so that's the time.
10:47. Yeah, it's the time.
10:47.
Yeah.
37. We're seen kissing with Robert in bus station window. So she was seen kissing Robert Abel?
That's what it's saying, that she was seen kissing him, and I think somehow Jack was there or his crew was there, that they were witnessing this and trying to flag her down. There's witnesses that said that people said that they didn't want her to get into this vehicle with this guy. Long story. So looks like it's him or
window and I drive 11/28/81 out to Chewbacca Road, Mass. So Massachusetts. So it is now indicating that. And I drive. Okay, so you saw with Robert in bus station window, and I drive 11/28. What's 11/28? Oh, 81. That's when she died. Out
the last.
Chewbacca, Chebacco Road, Chewbacca Road, Massachusetts. Damn.
Yeah. You're saying, damn, I fear the co-ed, the pretty co-ed has lost her life there.
And that is the completion of it. So worry, pretty girl, co-ed lost life, Creek area. 7777, no one is the sign off, correct?
Yeah, he's doing a lot of angel numbers at that time period. It was like every time I see some subsequent numbers that are left, I look them up. And if it's 4 of 7s, 4 of 3s, 4 of 4s, it all means something. So he's trying to convey that he's got spiritual help, that he's got some guidance, and he's got support, and he's working.
I want to say that the 1980s, wasn't that when he got baptized? Quit drinking.
That's what I'm hearing. The rumor is, all I know is this is now a time period where he's working and he's with the Holy See, which is shocking. doing intel work for them.
When was this postcard purportedly sent? After, obviously, Joan Webster passed, right? I mean, because it's discussing that she's already lost her life.
I think it was reportedly early January 1982, very early.
Okay, so shortly after that. All right. And I know that I want to say that it's 83 that he goes to work for Hewlett Packard because he doesn't come back to California and reunite with Nora and the family until, I want to say, well, we know that they're separated during 1982 because he's in Texas with his mom at this point on a separation from Nora. So it would have to be like 83 is when he probably started his work for Hewlett Packard. Okay, well, that was a very interesting solve. Thank you. Anything else that you guys wanted to add to that?
Well, I just want to thank you for. I kept on stumbling on that damn postcard for something else that you had requested. So I said, well, this is something to look at. So that it's indirectly has something to do with what you requested. So I said, well, I worked on Joan Webster too.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway.
And lo and behold, she's in this presentation, albeit I was under the impression it was something maybe the Zodiac had done, but it looks like now what you're saying is that was the act of Robert Abel once again. How many murders do you think that Robert Abel committed?
It could be dozens upon dozens. He even admitted that he killed some and, butchered them in the early 70s, especially around 71. And he admitted he was troubled. So, but he had.
How did he not get arrested? How did he not get arrested?
He was one of the top 5 NASA people that got us to the moon through the rockets. So he has all kinds of dark secrets in his head. And, how was he going to get therapy for that to help him when he's at the time a national security risk? So they just didn't know what to do with him. I think it's terrible. It sounds awful. So, and he knew he was troubled.
We've seen troubled and bad people get away with things because they need them. They use them. They're a benefit to the higher power, I guess, if you will. So that's not a strange thing to see people get away with crimes that they otherwise wouldn't get away with because they literally are either an informant or, necessary to whatever cause they have going on. I know that last weekend, Lindsay McBray had mentioned after the show that connection, obviously we keep running back into NASA, especially with Robert Abel. But she had indicated that obviously there's our tie-in because NASA then to Lockheed to John Benet Ramsey, which is going to be coming up here soon, or John Ramsey, should I say, not John Benet, but her father, John Ramsey, who in turn was, selling his computer software to Lockheed before all of this went down with John Benet Ramsey. So she wanted to remind us that connection still kind of sits and fits quite nicely. So on to our next slide.
Real quick. JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, is also highly intertwined with NASA. They're one of their primary contractors. And everybody, all the higher ups in NASA and all the astronauts are all Freemasons. And Jack Parsons, that formed JPL, was a higher up in Freemason as well as a disciple of Aleister Crowley.
Oh, dear Lord.
Freemasons are all tied up in a lot of this stuff.
So maybe that's where they keep coming up with this cult idea or concept that's kind of surrounding everything.
Yeah, perhaps.
I know that I try to steer away from that.
The connections, they may be tenuous, but they're there.
Right. And I know that I had always promised myself in the middle of this investigation and, examining these letters that I was going to steer clear of the cult aspect. I was going to steer clear of the child aspect. And it seems like I can't steer clear of it because everything just keeps climbing right back down those holes one way or another.
Yes, you can't ignore the obvious sometimes.
Or at least I shouldn't.
Yeah.
All right. So on our next slide, Dewhurst believes January 1983, Jack is said to begin a lengthy career with Hewlett Packard in Roseville, California, as a sergeant on the security team contracted through Pinkerton Security. This is the first real job Jack has had for quite some time. Like, I literally could not map out a legitimate job for Jack for years, at least since 1968. It was either, South Lake Tahoe Linen Company, it was gas stations, tow truck driver, like for somebody as intelligent who had literally designed a water waste removal treatment machine for nuclear power with General Electric in San Jose, to have then only held such menial jobs like a tow truck driver or, what have you. This is the first real job that we see back. And of course, it's contract security, which that always takes me back to CIA. Individuals who are hired based on contracts for security purposes, which usually kind of time out at some point. It's not like it's a permanent position with the company. You're on a contract through another company. Does anybody know anything about Pinkerton Security?
They've been around forever. They started out as government-related detectives. They fought. They had the shootout with the people in West Virginia over the unionizing of the miners, and then also they were involved in a hunt for some outlaws, the Dalton gang and different outlaws and in different areas, Minnesota and other areas like that. So they're kind of contract agents for like the FBI, or pre-FBI actually, and they've been around since 1800s.
Wow.
So also,
Yeah.
I want to point out too that Thane Caesar, who a lot of people think shot Robert Kennedy, was a contract security guard as well.
I remember when
Caesar, right, Harriet? And he worked for Kennedy too as a security guard.
Who did?
Thane Caesar, the main security guard, the closest to Robert F. Kennedy the night he was murdered.
Wow.
And he's also affiliated with mobsters in Vegas and with a lot of Howard Hughes's people.
Of course. Why did I even question who Pinkerton Security was? Like, gosh. And what did you have anything?
That was the cover, Jack. That's just right up his alley to have that type of position. So it was more than just being a night watchman. There's more to it than that.
100%.
Yeah,
and
a lot of these other menial jobs, and the menial is the perfect word, I think are covers too, just to throw people off track.
Well, yeah, and you're not necessarily needed at any given time. You can take off on whatever you need to do and not be missed. And
it's all about location with these menial positions.
Right, 100%. Close to the freeway, so you can get on and go. Did you have anything to add to that Pinkerton stuff there, Harriet?
Well, all I know is in the upcoming in 1990, there was video that was released several years ago on the security guard that was at where they were staging the robbery of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. And I believe that their computer systems were Hewlett Packard. And when I saw the guy in the video, it looked like Jack and wearing a security guard uniform. They never really released information on that person. It was 25 years later. But that's what I'm adding to it. That it was almost like he's getting in practice for that staged caper.
Gotcha. Well, and I want to remind everybody too that a lot of the I-45 and the Texas murders that were occurring, there was indications that eyewitnesses had seen people that looked seen the suspect who appeared to be in some type of a uniform, like a security guard uniform or something like that, which I thought that was extremely interesting because it ties into that same time frame in which Jack is, actively working as a security guard. Thus, he would have the access to the uniforms. He's constantly making trips back and forth to Texas for his mother, especially from 83 to, I think she passed in 97. 90? No, maybe that was
Yeah.
Nora. Something like that.
I think it was in the 90s. Yeah.
Right. Well, and also when I first started this case, and Dennis had told me what Jack had been doing for work, he stated that he was a security guard for Hewlett Packard, and of course, finding out that it was contract security afterwards was through his probation records, because he obviously had gotten that assault with a deadly weapon, which we're just about to talk about here, and still was able to get this job as a security guard for Hewlett Packard. So I just remember at the time my mentor saying to me that, oh no, a lowly security guard could never be the Zodiac. He's not intelligent enough. Well, he did not know, obviously. Well, or maybe he did know, and the reason why he was trying to deter me and throw me off track was in fact that Jack was so much more than just a security guard. That might have been what he was doing at the time that Dennis, remembered everything that was going on with his mom and up to the point that his mom died. But that wasn't all that Jack was, clearly. And we've been able to sort that out and show who Jack was through all of his own paperwork. That brings us to our next murder in Texas on January 15th of 1983. And again, remember, we're still not sure about the absolute time frame in which Jack shows back up, but we're about to show here in 1983, at least where we can show that he's back in California. But on January 15th of 1983, we had a 70-year-old Lee Leslie and a 57-year-old Raymond Mitchell murdered at the 27,000 block of Dry Creek in Magnolia, Texas. Both men had been known to meet other men in the Houston area and welcome them to visit in Magnolia. Lee in the closet of the northeast bedroom and Mitchell in the closet of the southeast bedroom. Both had been beaten and stabbed to death. Lee's maroon 1978 Pontiac was missing, and the car was then found on February 8th of 1983 in the 1900 block of Indian Street in Houston. So here we have another, set of unsolved murders. We have a vehicle that is taken and is subsequently found some distance away from the actual crime scene, which again, we've talked about this happening in a lot of these cases. January 20th of 1983, the FBI receives word from a psychic that the Atlanta, Georgia murders are related to the recent Tampa, Florida murders. Again, I'm not sure what the Tampa, Florida murders are, but the FBI did find that the Florida murders had occurred. So I'd put in here, it is important because in a few months, just in a couple months from here, we're going to actually see letters that are written to Jacksonville, Florida that are in the FOIA files from the FBI in regards to the Zodiac cases. On February 21st of 1983, 28-year-old Teresa Brignoni is killed in South Lakeshore Drive, Conroe, Texas. She left LaPorte, Texas, and departed for Conroe at about 9:15 p.m. She was last seen driving her 1981 Datsun 200 SX. On or about February 27th of 1983, the MCSO began receiving calls about an abandoned vehicle at the end of South Lakeshore Drive in the McRae Lakes subdivision off of FM 1484 in Conroe. MSCSO deputies subsequently checked the car, discovered that it belonged to Brignoni, and found Brignoni's dead body in the trunk. An autopsy revealed that she had been suffocated. There was no evidence of sexual assault or robbery. So this would be an interesting one to check into and find out exactly. I mean, it sounds to me that what you were saying about Robert Abel and his murders is that he was sexually deviant with these girls as well, correct?
Yeah, I don't think that, well, yes and no, but then he would go crazy and chop off their hands, mark them up, do really bad things. So it's probably, I gotta tell you, it sounds like it could be the work of him because he was right in that area. He worked property at League City, or at least he did. The NASA Horseman Abel, the property in that area.
Right.
So anything right now is possible.
Well, I get
And if she
interested in
looks
their
like,
murders when it says there's no sexual assault or robbery. You know, I mean, what would be the purpose of killing somebody if there was nothing that you could
oh,
achieve from them?
Well, that's
if she
Zodiac.
looks like Janis Joplin, it could, if she sang Janis Joplin tunes, I mean, it seems that was something that set him off. So that could be possible.
Right.
Because
And go ahead,
he's
Nolan.
the Janis Joplin Avenger. Sorry. Okay.
Gotcha.
Going.
Most of the Zodiac
Mhm.
murders too, there was no sex involved and no robbery involved, just killing.
Right. Right. And that's when I zero in probably more so in any of the unsolved murders that we talk about. It's almost as if you can take a look at the MO in some of these and go, yeah, no, probably not. And then others that you go, well, this probably should be looked at. Who was she? Who was her parents? Who was she affiliated with? What was she doing for work? You know, why was she suffocated? I mean, it seems like that's a we don't want you to talk type thing, you know? I mean, All right. That brings us to our next murder in Texas, which happened on March 17th, 1983. Laura Marie Purchase on League Line Road, Conroe, Texas, at approximately 3 a.m. And MCSO patrol deputy observed the fire burning just inside the woods along the northbound service road of I-45 at League Line Road. The dead body of an unidentified white female was found within the fire, which had recently been set. An autopsy determined that she had died from strangulation and the fire sat within the accelerant. Oh, she died from strangulation and the fire was set with an accelerant. Self-professed serial killer Henry Lee Lucas subsequently confessed to the crime along with several others in Montgomery County in 1983. Lucas had confessed to approximately 600 murders, with about 200 cleared across the United States. In 1986, the victim was later positively identified as Laura Marie Purchase after her fingerprints were matched. Purchase was last known to have been in Houston, Texas on March 5th. Now, Houston, Texas is definitely where we know that is the general area that Jack's mother is in at this point. On March 5th, 1983, she was living with a man named Howard or Howie, who played in a band called Malibu. Lucas died in prison in 2001 after his death sentence was commuted to life. Lucas had recanted his confessions, and it is believed he is not responsible for most of the crimes he confessed to. Recent DNA testing of semen from Purchase's body has been conducted by MCSO cold case detectives, eliminating Lucas from the DNA. Bingo, bango, boingo. I've been waiting for one of these to pop up.
I'm curious, when Lucas confessed, did they stop investigating who really did it and just accept his fact?
The documentary that I saw, the Texas Rangers were feeding him with information, allowing them to close, like it says up here, 200. They attempted to clear 200 murders across the United States on Henry Lee Lucas alone, and most of them were found to be that he couldn't possibly have even been there to commit those crimes. He was just being force-fed that information by the Texas Rangers, who were attempting to clear the books of a bunch of unsolved murders. Now, why would they care to do this? Why would they care to close out other murders across the United States that have no bearing on their jurisdiction or their state or otherwise, unless they were doing it for a group, doing it to clear these murders off the books?
Yeah, that's the opposite of what a law enforcement officer should be doing.
Right, 100%. And in that documentary, it turned out that an attorney of one of the cases that was looking to be cleared by Henry Lee Lucas's admitting to having killed, he found out that Henry Lee Lucas couldn't possibly have even been in that area. And when he tried to express this, not only was he attacked by law enforcement, but the IRS, they had IRS agents running around to other attorneys in town of this particular DA, trying to get them to flip on him and say that he had done something, unethical, immoral, illegal, whatever it was, and basically ran this man through the ringer just because he was trying to show and prove that Henry Lee Lucas was not responsible for the murder in his jurisdiction. So you tell me how stymie you got to get in order to keep this quiet, hush, hush, that you're going to literally sick the IRS on somebody in order to try and achieve your agenda of successfully closing these cases.
Right, and go after the one guy who's still trying to find out the truth.
Right. Yes. It to me, it's like politics all over again. The 102 self
Sure.
homicides around the Clintons is all in order, obviously, to keep everything hush hush. And then they are also were reportedly phenomenal for using the IRS as their watchdogs, right? So very, very crazy. Either way, here he is. Lucas is actually confessed to a crime he didn't commit, and years later the DNA shows that it wasn't possibly him. Now, that does tell us, though, that this victim was sexually assaulted. So again, this may be right up the road of Robert Abel, as you were saying, Harriet, rather than it being Jack and Zodiac. 1979 sex industry victim and witness against organized crime, Tammy Vincent was also set on fire with an accelerant. So we are seeing some commonalities there. And of course, we know that the Zodiac did say that he had used fire in some of his MOs. So it doesn't necessarily, I think that he was likely responsible for Tammy Vincent. Don't you, Harriet?
No, I'm just listening, but yeah, by fire, by rope, by gun, by knife.
Right.
It's either, I mean, he may have just a ton of information on this stuff,
Right. So Tammy Vincent, I think, was the one from Washington that was in witness protection in California in 79. So she was in the sex industry, and she was a victim and a witness against organized crime, and she comes up dead in this particular fashion or manner that we see occurs here with Laura Marie Purchase. April 18th of 1983. Now, this one I want to say is likely not been committed by the Zodiac. The 2005 finale letter indicates that he did not have anything to do with killing Hispanics or Chinese, simply just the women with brown hair that look like her, as we would call it. I believe that was out of the Sherry Jo Bates confession letter, but there was definitely a type. And if you follow many of the females in the procession of these murders, you will see that there's definitely a type. And again, that helps us to show that there's a possibility that Jack or the Zodiac was responsible for those murders. This particular murder on April 18th of 1983, 16-year-old Laura Jean Donez, FM 149, 7 miles north of Montgomery, Texas. At approximately 1 p.m., an oil field worker observed the fire burning in a wooded area near a logging road, approximately 400 yards west of FM 149. The dead body of an unidentified white female was found in the fire, and MCSO deputies were called. The fire had been set with what appeared to be a road flare, and an autopsy revealed that she had been strangled. So now this MO is just as identical, pretty much, to that of Laura Marie Purchase. So we've got strangulation and we've got set on fire. The fire had been set with what appeared to be a road flare, and an autopsy revealed that she'd been strangled. The victim was soon identified as Laura Jean Donez, 16 years of age, who had last been seen walking away from her residence in the 3500 block of Raymond Street, Houston, Texas. Donez had reportedly left to buy a hamburger at a nearby restaurant. Now, call me silly, but I'm not thinking that Donez is a white last name.
No, I think it's Mexican.
Right? And she doesn't look
brown skinned.
Yeah, she looks Hispanic. So when it says white female, now we can see how sometimes this information is, produced in a manner that isn't exactly completely true. But since we do see, and in that same letter, the 2005 finale letter, not only does the suspect take credit for many crimes, including the Zodiac stuff, he indicates that he knows that there are other people that are committing murders in the Texas area. Don't blame him for them, but there is somebody else that's killing people too. And that he's not the one that's responsible for the Hispanics and the Chinese, or however he puts it in that particular communication. But that communication also goes on to speak about Robert Abel not being the blue devil that the fuzz is looking for. So it's interesting to note that while he is talking about murders that he knows of, including Laura Miller, which is Tim Miller's daughter, we're going to see that here in this next year, but that he's quite like the Zodiac. Don't blame me for this because I'm not doing this, but I have done this. and you're not looking for this person for this. Like, so he's giving that inside information and probably knows who these other murderers are that are operating at the same time he is. He calls it in the 80s series. So, he's not the only person killing girls in the 80s series. May 13th of 1983, it says 15 to 22 years of age, I guess, was an estimated age of an unidentified white female at the 76 truck stop on Highway 59 at FM 1485, New Caney, Texas. At approximately 7:35 a.m., MCSO deputies responded to a wooded area behind the 76 truck stop where school children had found the decomposing body of an unidentified white female. The location of the body was positioned in an area where tractor trailers normally parked. An autopsy revealed that she had been killed by 2 blows to the head, which resulted in skull fractures. The victim was I copied and pasted a lot of this information, so this is somebody else's, typing, and as I'm reading it, I'm just trying to do it straight, like MCSO. It's not O. It should have been the capital letter O. Autopsy revealed that she'd been killed by 2 blows to the head. The victim was described as follows: 15 to 20 years of age, 59 inches in length. She was wearing shades, designer blue jeans, a tan Wrangler long sleeve terracloth t-shirt, and white panties. Recently, MCSO, see, there it is again, MCS. So, cold case detectives submitted potential DNA from victims' remains to be entered into the missing unidentified persons DNA database. Today, insufficient DNA has been obtained in order to enter a profile into CODIS for this particular unidentified white female. So she will likely continue to be unidentified. July 18th of 1983, here is one of the Jacksonville, Florida letters. I do not have a copy of this letter. I'm not sure if you have seen this one, Harriet, but it says, I know your, and it's postmarked Kalamazoo. It's postmarked Kalamazoo, Michigan, 490, but it doesn't give the rest of the zip code. But it was sent to Jacksonville, Florida, and it was a 1-page hand-printed letter. Appears as though it is written in all capital letters based on the FBI FOIA cable. And then I wrote in here as a note, remember, Oakland County child murders ended just a few years back, and now there is purportedly a serial spree in Florida. And of course, we have that psychic that we just talked about that was making a connection between the Atlanta murders and the current murders in Florida. Have you seen this particular communication or heard of it, the one that went to Jacksonville, Florida?
No, but I could take a look at it, but off the top of my head, it may have something to do with the Yakuza and the missing children. Some of them became other people. And what's the Finders cult also. So there would be probably that he's giving information maybe on that.
Yeah, I was
and
limited.
The FBI gets that stuff.
And of course, go ahead.
Keep going. Sorry.
No.
No, I was going to say that there was a Yakuza guy that was living in Florida. I'm trying to remember his name, but it's showing up in the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children databases for the milk carton kids.
So what's a Yakuza?
And they hate this, so my apologies to the Yakuza, which is an organized crime Japanese style. They're considered to be like the Japanese mafia. They don't like to be called that, but they are just
highly trained killers.
They're what?
Yeah, they're
highly trained killers with weapons and martial arts and things like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so they're very, very much along the description of what you would see about the mafia, the mobsters, the gangsters. So they traffic in people, traffic in drugs, traffic in I think even art. So, anyways,
there's a great movie, Robert Mitchum film from the 70s called The Yakuza, and it takes place in Japan. And it's really, if you're interested.
Gotcha. I just finished watching the Sicario movies. Well, I'm watching the first one now, but I watched the second one first, and they had indicated that human trafficking was far more lucrative because you don't have to plant, propagate, process, or do anything like you have to with drugs, and that one trip of people was more profitable than a kilo of cocaine. So at a certain point, over to human trafficking was obviously making them far more money than hustling in the drugs and having to grow, process, and package, distribute, and all of the other things. So that makes that extremely interesting. But it seems like human trafficking is pretty much in just about every culture. There's somebody that is taking advantage. It is completely. And most of us don't even think about this on a daily basis. I mean, I probably could have gone through life without ever even thinking twice about human trafficking. You very rarely ever hear anything about it. There's not like there's a lot of propaganda telling people to keep an eye out or report, suspicious activity or any of this stuff.
Right.
Well, and I did read this.
Dennis have to say?
Well, I had this out of order. So evidently I read this last week. This is where the Jack has come back home. He is supposed to be at work, but Dennis's mom calls Hewlett Packard and they say, nope, he's been gone. He left early today. He gets home and tells Dennis's mom that he had worked overtime, which was not consistent with what she had already known because she had called into Hewlett Packard. And thus Jack went absolutely berserk and attempted to assault the family members, I believe with a hammer. Let's see. Oh, mom, talked to the boss, ran into the kitchen. We were making sure. Jack flung the hot water towards us. And then let's see. Ripped the screen out of the window, helped his sister out. He came in with a gun, evidently. He was going to, Dennis believed that had he been in there, that he would have, or had they been in the room when Jack came in, that he would have shot them. But basically, a few hours later, Jack was arrested and charged with assault with a deadly weapon. And eventually, Jack was able to have the charges reduced to a misdemeanor. How do you try to kill somebody and get that reduced to a misdemeanor, Nolan?
Good lawyer.
That brings us to the
that's get 34 felonies and not do any time.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, honestly, seems like a little smack on the hand there, a little smacky smack. This is actually where I showed everybody that he had bonded out under torrents. Which is, again, not something you would typically see. The bond needs to match the identification card in order for you to be released. So if he was released on this bond and it was not typed up correctly and had the wrong name, then the assertion is that Jack had an identification or something to that effect that allowed him to be released based on this name. And this would also support why we did not find any information when the private investigators ran background checks on Jack and didn't find any criminal activity, because this does not come up underneath Jack's information at all. Let's see. August 19th of 1983, Elizabeth Shoemate, Joanne Brown, and Fran Ivy are killed at the 16,007 Memorial in Texas. All three were shot in the head. They attempted tying up a victim with a cord from Venetian blinds. And then, of course, Monday, August 22nd. So I'm thinking personally that these three, I don't know if you have any information on these three. This may very well be another one of Robert Abel's doings, in your belief, Harriet, because this happens on August 19th of 1983. And on Monday, August 22nd, 1983, Jack is being released on bond. So he was likely already in jail when those particular murders happened.
Mm-hmm.
That picture looks more like Truman Capote than like Jack.
Looks like what?
Mm-hmm.
The author, Truman Capote.
Oh. You know what caught me? Is those mobster-looking glasses. You know what I mean? Like the ones you see.
The funny thing is, Truman Capote wrote the book called In Cold Blood about some murders that happened in the Midwest.
Huh.
Just an interesting aside there.
Yeah. Those are some big old glasses, though. It reminds me of something I saw off The Irishman. So anyway, so Jack is said to have been given 30 days, but knowing the system, he got out on good behavior. And of course, we do see that he's handling a few things I don't know if they gave him time when they convicted him and gave him a sentence. Is it common that sometimes they will allow time for you to clear up any personal things that you need to do before turning yourself in to go to jail, Nolan?
Yeah, that happens. Depends on the gravity of the crime.
Okay. So it said he was given 60 days, but I believe that in this he'd only done 30 days based on at least the information that we're going to go through and talk about. I actually thought we were going to get into this particular very graphic pictures, but I think I'm going to hold up because it is 10:50 and we have actually ran out of time. So I'm thanking you guys for being here. Everybody have a wonderful weekend and we will see you next Friday. Sorry to cut you all off. Bye,
Goodbye,
guys.
Summer.
Yeah.